Was the gig economy a farce built on an unsustainable financial model? As Derek Thompson's recent piece in The Atlantic put it, something beyond rising energy and labor costs is leading to sticker shock on once cheap urban amenities. Clearly, something has changed since Airbnb first hit the scene in 2008. This was the perfect moment for the gig economy to make its grand debut, as the US was reeling from the Great Recession. The unemployment rate had doubled, and other workers faced furloughs and reduced hours. This made alternatives to classic employment seem quite appealing, like a potential safety net.
Now, with the economy being more than troubling for most, it's led many people to choose these alternative options of income like gig work, whether that's delivering food or straight up just delivering people, which is just, doing Uber or DoorDash, or these certain sort of, gig work apps on their phone to provide an extra sort of income for themselves. And a lot of these individuals in the modern generation, being mostly Gen Z, Millennials, modern generations, they're finding themselves not really making much money through these alternative means, because now it's kind of been an oversaturated market, being that so many people are now resorting to these certain things that some people are even making the alternative source of income their straight up main source of income. And there really only are certain times where people are ordering food, and many people these days can't even afford to order food, even with the DoorDash membership or whatever hell else they're trying to push throughout your emails nonstop until you buy it. And then, they're always trying to make you get the monthly recurring service, so many people are opting out of all that because we can't really afford monthly services no longer anymore. So in this video, we're going to discuss the gig work economy and how it's kind of oversaturated, kind of overcrowded, and just like the overall every other position throughout the job market, it seems as if every generation is having a hard time getting by. So despite which generation you're from, which tax bracket you find yourself falling into, if you personally have any other thoughts, opinions regarding anything discussed in this video, feel free to leave those down below in the comments, as well as a huge shout out to him for you guys checking out those links down below in the description. These are always some best ways to support me and the content around here. Now let's begin this shit show.
My generation was afraid of having more than one job or moving jobs. They're just like, the employer calls the shots, guess I got to go there. But Gen Z goes, if I don't like it, I'll leave. And they're also not afraid of gig work. So they do what I call job stacking. They'll stack multiple jobs at the same time on top. In fact, one of the things happening out there right now is people are having multiple full-time jobs at the same time and getting pay from all of those companies, because the belief of a Gen Z sides more to, you're paying me for the job, not for the hours. Whereas you go older, they're like, paying for the hours, got to get more efficient. And if you get more efficient, I'm going to give you more things to do.
Millennials will be the first generation since the 1800s that are worse off than their parents in American history. We are overeducated, overworked, lonely, depressed, and poor in almost every metric across the board. First off, will be? No. Millennials are the first generation since the 1800s, okay? It's not will. We are already feeling this way, okay? I can attest to this as a millennial. And I mean, I'm like in the middle, purebred millennial. I feel this in my heart and in my soul, okay? Definitely overeducated, overworked, can be lonely sometimes. I've been depressed more times than I can count. Definitely been poor these days, and it's sad compared to other generations that were before us. Unfortunately, we're just not doing as well as they were. But we did live through a lot of unprecedented events, okay? And we were told this dream, the American dream, that is technically a scam. You're supposed to graduate from college, find a great job, find you a husband, have some kids, and have the perfect life. But that's not how, and buy a house, which none of us can afford. It's not in the cards for a lot of us. Some of us, have had all the good things and all the bad or whatever, but a lot of us, we're like this, okay? Struggling. The struggle bus is real out here.
Now, delivering pizzas has always been a job that people have been doing, and a lot of people have been doing that for an extra 10-20 hours a week to make an extra side income. Hell, some people have been doing that for a full-time thing for quite some time now, for a long time before these said gig work apps have been created. But now that there's been DoorDash, there's Uber Eats, there's all these other things, there's Grubhub, pretty much every single restaurant, even grocery stores now, they can deliver anything you want to. Hell, even Best Buy will deliver you iPads if you are in a certain location within the cities, and they'll get to you within 20-30 minutes for I was going to say reduced cost, but for an extremely overpriced cost, because convenience sells very, very highly here in America. But it's kind of crazy to think how, with a lot of people starting to resort to these measures, it's starting to feel like it's not really working out. And it really seems like it's, the times have shifted, where back in the day, there's a lot of now, okay, a lot of the younger generations have resentment towards the older generations, yada yada, just like every other video I touch on here on the channel. But it's because back in the day, you could actually work one job 40 hours a week, hell, maybe even have a side job on the weekend and then make some money through that. And you could be able to have your own car and not have to pimp it out every week with people riding in it and people, you putting gas and miles and potentially damage on your vehicle, especially with who knows who you're going to be driving around. We've seen so many different crazy incidents where Uber drivers get into these assault type of altercations, or you just never know who you're going to be driving around with. And especially even if you're delivering, groceries, it's not like you're having anything crazy in your car. It still is putting a lot of mileage and gas on your vehicle, which you have to pay for at the end of the day. These apps don't really cover a lot of that, I don't think. But if you have personally worked for any of these apps and you personally think it's more worth it than the downsides, feel free to let me know down below in the comments if you've experienced that. But I've heard a lot of people that I've even rode around with in the Ubers that or the Lyft rides that I've drove in, that it seems like the market has kind of been reduced and the seasons have changed.
Let's break down what each generation is holding in our nation's wealth right now. The silent generation has 12%. The boomers have 50%. Gen Xers 30%. Millennials 8.5%. Now, why this is concerning is because the 50% of the wealth that the boomers hold, how they built their wealth, was mainly off of real estate and the stock market. But if you think about the millennials and the Gen Zers right now, with these housing prices and interest rates, how many millennials or Gen Zers are actually going to be able to build wealth through real estate for the middle class American? It's not looking as bright as it once was, and that's the first concern. And secondly, if we're burdened with these student loans or the high cost of living, rent being $2,200 a month, I don't think the millennials and Gen Zers are thinking about putting an extra $500-600 a month, if they even have that, into the stock market for 30 years from now, when we're kind of unsure of where the future is even going to be. And secondly, maybe the boomers are going to say, well, you guys just need time to build wealth. It'll come. Well, back in the 80s, when the boomers were our age, they had twice the money. So if we were on trend like the generations before us, the millennials should be sitting on 17% and 26 trillion, which makes a little more sense. So if we're not going to be able to build wealth like the future generations do, where does that leave us? I don't think this should be depressing. I just think this should be a wake-up call for us millennials and Gen Zers and future generations to change the American dream narrative and forge our own path. Because if we keep following the leader, we're going to walk right off the edge.
Now, the problem isn't that I don't think that these young people, these younger modern generations, Gen Z, millennials mostly is what we're kind of referring to here. I don't think it's that they don't want to work. I don't think it's that they're not willing to put in the extra hours after work of their main job to have a side job or work on the weekends. It's not the case. It's the fact that back in the day, you could actually afford to have a modern lifestyle, a traditional lifestyle, which now is overpriced and out of the budget for the modern person. And with the modern individual being within these generations, Gen Z, millennials is what we're speaking on again, it seems as if there's a lot of resentment towards the older generation, which I'll touch on again. Being that, you have to pimp out your car for Uber rides, you have to pimp out your house to rent a room out for Airbnb, so you have to pimp out yourself to make another stream of income constantly, and there's only so many jobs you can do. So having to get 3, 4, 5 jobs, it's kind of hard to balance all that, especially when you're already putting off having to have a kid, having to have a significant other, and there's really no savings. So even with these jobs, people don't really have a lot of money for savings, so their whole idea of retirement, the concept of retirement, has gone far out the window and is far, far behind us. That's going to wrap up this video discussing how the gig work economy is dead, and it's been dead for quite some time now. And if you personally have any thoughts, opinions, or if you personally experienced or have been a part of any of these topics we discussed here in today's video, feel free to leave your thoughts, opinions down below. And despite which generation you're from or which tax bracket you fall into, don't forget to leave your thoughts, opinions down below and give a like, comment, and subscribe. They all add up. And a huge shout out to Cam for you guys checking out those links down below in the description. Those are always some of the best ways to support me and the content around here. It's kind of like out for this one, so see you in the next one. Bye.